2026.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he's been known to extend.
Extend, yeah.
And he could do that because most shareholders, like Bob Iger's better than anybody else out there, will stick with that. All right, so things seem to be settling down, a little bit of stability returning to Mickey Mouse. How about at Paramount Global? It's almost the opposite. Are they going to sell the entire company, parts of the company, super voting stock? What's going on there?
Yeah, so it looks like now they have, or they've entered this period of exclusive talks with Skydance Media. And Skydance Media has kind of been, this on again, off again, interested party in the Paramount company. But of course, they didn't want to come out with a bid for the entire company. At least up until this point, they always kind of wanted to do it in a slightly different way by kind of taking control of voting stock through National Amusements and the Redstone family. Now it looks like they're kind of going to engineer like a two-step process where they first take control of National Amusements and then go about it, merge Skydance with the entire company, with Paramount. So still, there's just more unknowns than knowns at this point. There seems to be some reports out there suggesting that they would need to do an equity deal raise of at least $3 billion. That's going to be really dilutive for the current shareholders. Again, we don't know exactly how much Sherry Redstone is demanding for her voting stock. There are rumors out there suggesting it's upwards of about $2 to $2.5 billion. She also owns about close to almost $1 billion in economic stake in Paramount. So again, too many unknowns right now, Paul. But we do definitely have concrete talks. That much is for sure.
So is the Apollo thing like off the table, right? Because that would be more of a piecemeal approach to Paramount, right? Even though the cash deal was better. So the Apollo thing was actually, initially it was piecemeal, so they only were really interested in the film studio. They did not want the TV networks, they did not want the streaming asset, but it looks like when reports emerged about the Skydance deal, they said that Apollo actually had made a $26 billion offer, an all-cash deal for the entire company, which Sherry Redstone, for some reason, basically said no to.
So what's the future? This is the Paramount Studios. This is one of the prized jewels in Hollywood. What happens to this company? Is it going to remain a publicly traded company? Is it going to be taken private?
I think the most likely outcome at this point, Paul, is that it still very much remains a public company. We know that David Ellison is really only interested in the studio portion of the business, and you're absolutely right. It's an iconic studio. There's no doubt about it. They have a very, very valuable studio lot right in the heart of LA. That's worth maybe upwards of $1.52 billion. So obviously there's a lot of assets that he likes, but only with the studio business. So again, the question is, yes, he can keep it a public company, but he might really kind of trim it down, try and find some buyers for the TV network or probably the streaming platform, and just make this like a pure play kind of film studio with, production and licensing operations, very similar to like what Lionsgate is doing.
Our thanks to Geetha Ranganathan, Bloomberg Intelligence senior analyst covering media.
Back in January, Bloomberg Intelligence came up with a list of 50 companies to watch in 2024, and now they're back with a list of 10 companies specifically for the second quarter.
This is based on scenarios from our BI analysts who sorted through the barrel to find the good apples across sectors and regions. For more, we were joined by Tim Craighead, Bloomberg Intelligence Research Director for Content. We first asked Tim to talk about the companies on this list.
A couple of things to keep in mind here. Top 10 for 2Q. These are part of a broader set of focus ideas that we've got. There's roughly 75 to 80 of them right now across sectors, across regions. These specifically have important catalysts coming up in 2Q that we think can bring the market around to our perspective. All of these focus ideas have really strong, high conviction, fundamental views that we think are different from the market, and these catalysts should bring that awareness around. It's a group of U.S. companies. There's 4 of them. There's 3 in Europe, 3 in Asia, and they span the gamut from healthcare, med tech products to big financials to tires. So, interesting group.
And Tim, one of the ones that, I've been kind of thinking about, I just think these Olympics in Paris are going to be just huge. And I'm thinking about ways to play it. You guys have one of them in the lodging space. Talk to us about that opportunity.
Yeah, we do. Accor. It's a big French hotel company. You might not know Accor, but you probably know some of their underlying brands.
Yeah.
And, anybody who's made a hotel booking as of late knows that the prices seem to be really high, surprisingly so. That's feeding Accor's RevPAR, their pricing, which is playing through in the profit margins. And the catalyst for these guys is, in fact, Paris Olympics. We should start to see early booking data over the course of 2Q heading into Summer Olympics. Now, Paris is only one part of their portfolio. They're across Europe and Asia, and we're seeing a strong, sustained travel recovery story that we think is better than consensus expects.
But apparently they have to like clean out the tent. Did you read that? That
Yes.
there's so much.
I'm not going in there.
Like, can you imagine being an Olympic swimmer and like there's garbage hitting you in the sand? I mean, they're working on it. They're definitely working on it. Okay, your second one is in retail. Chow Tai Fook. No one's gonna know this company here in the U.S. So tell us about it and why this makes the outlook.
That and the next one on the list from an alphabetical perspective are both sort of interesting twists on the same underlying theme, and that's China. We all know that there's problems in China from the standpoint of the property market and how that's playing through in terms of sentiment, the wealth effect on spending plans, etc. Chow Tai Fook is arguably the best known Chinese retailer when it comes to jewelry, and it's a big market historically for tourists and travelers coming into Hong Kong and to make those purchases. In fact, what we're seeing right now is Hong Kongers are going out of Hong Kong across the border into mainland China to shop for pretty much everything because it's cheaper. So you combine that with negative sentiment, we think Hong Kong retail sales are going to disappoint, and Chow Tai Fook is a poster child. The other one, CSC Financial, is one of the largest Chinese brokerages, good old-fashioned, wealth management. And there, the investment banking business, we think, is set for disappointment because IPOs and other new stock listings are way underwater. We think you're going to see investment banking revenue disappoint.
I was looking through the list here, Tim, and I was looking for a name from Michael Dean and the European Autos team, and I think I found one in Pirelli Tires.
Yes, indeed. I started to say if you're an F1 fan, but that's more from a European perspective than NASCAR in the U.S.
Right.
But Pirelli is a well-known tire maker, and what they're doing is twofold. Number one, upgrading their mix. They're getting rid of some of their lower-end products. And number two, they've taken on a pretty big initiative to shift production from core Europe to places like Romania over here and Mexico over there. All of which is driving better margins. And we think that this is going to continue more than what consensus currently bakes in.
Plus, it's from one of my favorite analysts over in our London office, Jillian Davis, doing some good work there, so good stuff.
Home building. Taylor Morrison made the list. That's not normally the company you think of when you think of like a home builder, right? You're thinking Lennar, KB Homes, etc. How did this one make the list?
They're continuing to expand specifically in some larger developments in Florida and Texas, and it just seems to be a case of good old-fashioned running the numbers with those expansion plans feeding through and their order book coming through better than anticipated, where we think they're positive surprises ahead. But it is a classic story from the standpoint of expanding order books, expanding volumes.
One name that's on there that's surprising, but I think it's a potential real opportunity, is Tencent. Talk to us about big Chinese e-commerce, because for a lot of people, Tim, as you well know, China is kind of taboo right now from an investment perspective.
It is, especially when it comes to technology and regulatory concerns and, Beijing focusing in on, what the big tech companies are doing. Historically, these have, Tencent's driven by online gaming. And that growth rate is still somewhat muted, but there's more video that's coming through. There's AI-assisted advertising that is growing. Both of those are drivers of their income statement that we think are underappreciated. We think it's mid-teens growth going forward, but if you do the math, the market seems to be discounting basically static to maybe low single-digit growth rates. And so there, it's just a case where we think the market doesn't realize that they're back to having good, solid forward growth.
Our thanks to Tim Craighead, Bloomberg Intelligence Research Director for Content.
All right, coming up, we're going to discuss what Tesla's first quarter delivery miss means for the EV space.
You're listening to Bloomberg Intelligence on Bloomberg Radio, providing in-depth research and data on 2,000 companies and 130 industries. You can access Bloomberg Intelligence via VI Go on the terminal. I'm Paul Sweeney.
And I'm Alex Steele, and this is Bloomberg.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
We're looking at a partly sunny day today. Chance for a few showers, though, various times throughout the day. Breezy, high 50 to 55 degrees today. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, breezy, low 40 to 45. Tomorrow, partly sunny, breezy, high near 55. Tomorrow night, clear skies, low 40 to 45. Monday, partly sunny, high 60 to 65. Tuesday, mostly cloudy, high 70 to 75. And that is your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
News when you want it. Get the latest headlines from Bloomberg News updated continuously throughout the day with Bloomberg News Now.
Listen anytime on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.
And anywhere you get your podcasts.
At MassMutual, our commitment to wealth management means offering financial advisors the best of both worlds. With our innovative supported independence model, we're giving you freedom with resources you need to run your business, helping you make a name for yourself with our good name behind you, freeing you to offer clients the advice they need, and making sure you're properly compensated for that advice. When it comes to wealth management, we choose to lead. Learn more at massmutual.com/wealth.
Why just listen to Bloomberg Surveillance when you can also watch us live on YouTube? I'm Lisa Mateo.
And I'm Tom Keene. Join us weekday mornings along with Paul Sweeney and Michael Barr starting at 7 a.m.
Head to the Bloomberg podcast page on YouTube to hear and see the smartest voices on global markets and investment.
Make Bloomberg Surveillance an essential part of your morning routine weekdays from 7 to 10.
Visit the Bloomberg podcast page on YouTube and click on the live feed to join us today.
Landmark infrastructure legislation was passed in the last Congress. Now comes the work of getting it built. The Global X U.S. Infrastructure Development ETF, ticker PAVE, invests in dozens of companies helping shape the future of American infrastructure. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Investments in infrastructure-related companies have greater exposure to the potential adverse economic, regulatory, political, and other changes affecting such entities. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in the full or summary prospectus at globalxetfs.com. Read carefully. Distributed by SEI Investments Distribution Company.
Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is New York's only 24-hour source for breaking business news and market-moving headlines. Bloomberg 1130. Now, a global news update.
President Biden is reassuring Baltimore following last week's collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Most importantly, the people of Maryland, I'm here to say your nation has your back, and I mean it. Your nation has your back.
Speaking at the site of the collapse, Biden said he's grieving with the families of the 6 construction workers that were killed last week. A cargo container smashed into the bridge, causing it to immediately collapse. U.S. officials are concerned about the potential fallout after an Israeli airstrike on an Iranian embassy. Israel targeted and killed 2 Iranian generals at the embassy in Syria on Monday. While the Department of Defense says it has no advanced knowledge of the attack, officials are wary of a possible Iranian response. Tensions are mounting between special counsel Jack Smith and the judge presiding over former Trump's classified documents case. In a court filing this week, Smith questioned Judge Eileen Cannon's request to prosecutors and defense lawyers to submit proposed jury instructions considering Trump's argument the Presidential Records Act allowed him to keep classified material after leaving office. Smith said Cannon's request was based on a fundamentally flawed legal premise and called on her to rule on whether the argument can be considered during trial. Cannon on Thursday rejected Trump's bid to have the case dismissed, but left open the possibility for Trump to continue raising the argument in his defense. Netflix actor Adrian Schiller is dead at 60. The 60-year-old actor was best known for his role in the Netflix series The Last Kingdom. He also appeared with Meryl Streep in the 2015 film Suffragette and the 2017 live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. Schiller's agent said his death on Wednesday was sudden and unexpected. Details on his cause of death were not revealed. The men's NCAA Final Four will be today in Arizona at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. 11-seed NC State will take on 1-seed Purdue in the first game at 6:09 p.m. Eastern. Then 4-seed Alabama will take on top-seeded UConn at 8:49 p.m. Eastern. The winners will face each other in the national championship on Monday. I'm Dina Kodiak.
Now, a sports update on Bloomberg 1130.
UConn's a win away from its second straight title game appearance. They'll look to advance with a win tonight over Alabama, tip-off at 8:49. The other Final Four matchup has Purdue facing NC State. On the women's side, South Carolina battles Caitlin Clark in Iowa for the national championship on Sunday. Turning to baseball, the Yankees play the Blue Jays tonight at the stadium. The Mets are on the road in Cincinnati. That's a Bloomberg Sports Update. I'm Joel Stern.
This is Bloomberg Intelligence with Alex Steele and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We look next at the EV space. So this week, Tesla reported first quarter vehicle deliveries that fell 14% short of analyst expectations. And this also represented Tesla's first year-over-year decline in deliveries since 2020.
This comes as the EV maker Rivian reported that it delivered more EVs last quarter than Wall Street expected. For more on all of this, we were joined by Steve Mann, Global Autos and Industrials Research Analyst. We first asked Steve what Tesla's miss means for the company going forward.
I mean, it's a bad time. They just actually raised prices on their cars, puts into question about that strategy. There's a lot of questions out there, with, the end market, the consumer hesitating a bit on buying EVs. So what's going to be for Tesla going forward? Definitely their 1.8 million sales target for the year is definitely at risk.
Do we know why? What's the why behind it? They're going to talk about production misses in terms of supply chain issues, etc. But then Rivian kind of crushed it. So what's the real reason here?
Yeah, they actually, Tesla attributed to the Red Sea hostilities. Mm-hmm. And, that's partly right, because a lot of their Model 3 and Model Y, the best-selling vehicles actually come from China. And, you would assume a lot of these vehicles are shipped through the Pacific Ocean, avoiding the Red Sea. But we'll give them benefit of the doubt that it had some impact. Maybe it's not necessarily the shipment of vehicles, maybe the shipment of parts, right, through the Red Sea that's impacted the production in China. And remember, they actually cut some production in China recently as well. So, that could be the reason. But like you said, Rivian sales have gone up. Is there anything specific to Tesla? I don't really think so. One quarter is not going to tell us the trend for the long term. I think Tesla vehicles are still, liked by a lot of consumers. We just did a survey actually recently, a buying intention survey. Tesla has the greatest brand loyalty still amongst all brands in the auto industry. Yes.
The big question on investors' minds is, what is the real demand for EVs in general, and Tesla in particular, look in the near and intermediate term? Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that not only Tesla, but the entire EV market is going through a rough patch this year and likely into the next year. My long-term view is still optimistic about EVs. I think there's enough policies out there to push, greener vehicles, more greener vehicles on the road. I think the issue today is about affordability. There's actually not enough affordable EVs out there for the masses. Currently, a lot of vehicles are expensive. They're over $50,000. A lot of people can buy them, especially during high interest rate environments.
That has been the rhetoric, really,